know about our Lenten offering that is starting. If you didn't know that, starting on Wednesday this last week, we've entered into the Lenten season. And for Lent this year, our offering is going to be going to support a Bible project among the Prai people in Thailand. And if you go ahead and put you've already got the pictures up there on the screen. We have been supporting Dave and Fran Jordan in Thailand for now almost 40 years. You're allowed to say it. Wow.
That's
if you'd like, you could say it backwards. Ready?
Wow.
It's that impressive.
It is.
When I first came here a number of years ago, I had the chance to meet Dave and Fran. I will tell you, I was blown away by their humility, their faithfulness, their integrity, their gospel witness. And Dave shared with me, in all humility, he said, I want to thank you, and I want you to know that this congregation that you've been called to serve has been faithfully supporting us. At that point, we'd been supporting them for about roughly 30 years, a little less than that. And he said, in all of the time that we have been among the Prai people in the gem forest of Thailand, we have not yet seen, at that point, we have not yet seen anyone come to Christ. And of course, it's every missionary's nightmare that they would come home and share stories about what God is doing. The church would go, well, why are we investing kingdom money in this if it's not yielding any fruit? And of course, they're always concerned about that. But this church and the other sending church, which is Beverly Heights EPC Church in the South Hills, never once asked the question of how many people, what are the numbers. It was just about biblical faithfulness. And they were humbled by that. And when I heard that story, I was humbled by that. And but that has changed now. And let me tell you why. Because about 6 years ago, the first person among the Prai came to Christ. Now, it took 34 years before that first person came to Christ. 34 years. And part of it was, first of all, Dave and Fran had to learn the Prai language. And the Prai language was just an oral language. So they had to learn the oral language. But then once they learned the oral language, they had to actually create a written language. There was no written language. So they used Thai symbols to create a Prai language. Dave and Fran Jordan are the originators of the written Prai language. Then they had to teach the Prai people their own language. So they had to learn the Prai language. They had to learn how to write and create a written Prai language. Then they had to teach the Prai people how to read their own language. And then they started about the business of translating the Bible into the Prai language. And about 6 years ago, when they completed the New Testament, they saw their first Prai person come to Christ. And now, some 6 years later, the Prai Bible project is almost complete. And they have about 5 churches of indigenous Prai believers in the mountains of northern Thailand who are reading the Bible in their own native language. Amen. Here's the thing. The Lenten offering is going to go to support the completion of that project because they're getting close to completing it. But one of the pieces necessary to completing the Prai Bible translation project, and this is going to cause your mind to explode, is that they are creating a Prai Bible app. I am stunned by this. Because we have gone from the gem forest of Thailand, where people had never heard the gospel, didn't even have a written language, to having the entire Bible almost translated, and having it in an app. Just in a very short period of time. Because you see, in developing countries, the infrastructure is not typically in place for hard lines, and everything is done, the connectivity all happens through cell towers. And so the Prai people are getting these things, and they've learned how to read, and now the accessibility is coming. And you and I have the ability. This is like Elizabeth Elliot's stuff. This is the stuff that will be written in missionary books someday, and people will say, wow, it would have been great to be there when that happened. And we actually have the front seat to it happening. This is this Super Bowl of missions, people.
Touchdown.
This is amazing stuff. And Beverly Heights and Memorial Park have been there for 40 years, walking alongside these faithful people as they have lived among the Prai people, knowing them and loving them and learning their culture and their language and communicating the gospel to them. And now, any missiologist will tell you that when an unreached people group has been reached, it's when you have an indigenous Bible translation in their language, you have indigenous leaders who've come to Christ, and it becomes reproducing. And all three of those things have now occurred among the Prai people in the last 3 years. And we had the chance to be a part of that. So during the Lent season, if you write a check out and put in the memo line, Lenten offering, or Prai Bible Translation Project, or something like that, put in an envelope or anything like that, we'll make sure that money gets set aside for this purpose. This is over and above your regular tithes and offerings to be a blessing unto the nations. Quite literally, unto the nations. Amen?
Amen.
Amen.